What's going on, guys? This is Ed Reviews here for our first official podcast since hiatus. Joining me for his first time back,
Hello!
the wonderful, the magnificent junior consultant Mike Adams, fresh out of his first year of college. How you doing, buddy? How was your hiatus?
You're making me blush. It was fine. Glad to be back and glad to be talking about topics that, gonna anger me today.
Today we're here to talk to you about Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered Edition, which came out end of May. The end of May hasn't happened yet. End of March.
Yeah.
We both bought it. We were both working through it over the past month and a half. And over the course of the time, we kind of started having a dialogue about how, among other things, it's not held up.
Nope, not at all.
Before we go into our specific kind of complaints on that game, I think it might be smart. I think it's a good idea to kind of, similar to what we did in the Life is Strange podcasts, talk a little bit about how we both got into Assassin's Creed and maybe a little bit to what eventually turned us off to Assassin's Creed, because we haven't played one since we both ended on Syndicate, didn't we?
Yeah, Syndicate was last.
Syndicate one. Coincidentally, Syndicate was the last Assassin's Creed game that Mike and I both touched.
And I got it for free, so.
And I bought it. I think I had pre-ordered it at the time. I'll explain why. Maybe when we get to where that series is gone. Basically, I'm a sucker is the short version. But I guess I'll start because mine's a little bit quicker. I always knew of Assassin's Creed. I never really had the console for it. I had a Wii growing up, so obviously we never got into any of the Assassin's Creed games. But then, in that weird year and a half when the Wii U first came out, where all the third-party developers were like, put some shit on Wii U! Ubisoft, very nicely, put Assassin's Creed 3 on the Wii U. And my favorite time period in history is the American Revolution. I don't know why. That just, as a kid, was always my favorite.
I think it's because we learned about it every year in social studies.
That's true.
Up to, high school.
American education. Just teach the American Revolution over and over and over.
We inch further and further along.
And I apologize for the phone ringing, but we're not going to stop. We're going to just power through it.
Whatever. It's fine.
And so, yeah, Assassin's Creed 3 was the first time that the series was ever brought into North America, in the story realm.
It was also the fourth year in a row they did the one-year development cycle of the game.
But obviously I didn't know about that. Mm-hmm. I was just like, oh my god, Assassin's Creed. Oh my god, the American Revolution. I have a console for this. And at 13, I convinced my mom. That was actually my first ever M-rated video game. I mean, I had played COD at a friend's house a little bit, but it was the first time I was experiencing a quote-unquote mature story. And at the time, I loved it. Very much as a 13-year-old, I loved that game. I thought it was so cool to be in these great moments in American history, even though they are poorly executed, which we'll hit on more towards the end. But I really liked it. I stayed with this series playing Assassin's Creed 4, Assassin's Creed Unity, and then Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which I never even finished the story. I think a third of the way through, and I just kind of got bored.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of stopped because the series really started to fatigue me. And we'll get on to why series fatigue happens closer to the end. But that's kind of me. Now you, Mike, what did you...
See, I'm kind of on the opposite end. I have been... When Assassin's Creed 3 came out, I was kind of an avid fanboy of the series. Because I started out with 2. I never played 1 until after I finished Revelations. So I've known about the series. I liked it a lot. When 3 came out, I think I got it for my birthday. I played it. I liked it. I read up on some things during the time, and apparently not a lot of people liked it. Some people did, some people didn't. It was kind of a mixed road. It was fine with me. I had a couple glitches, but I really did like it. I didn't 14, 13-year-old me didn't care. Like, it was just like, Assassin's Creed, woo! That's where I was kind of at with that. So I wasn't really like into looking at games too critically, and I think that's most kids when they play games. It's like, I just want to stab stuff.
Stabbing redcoats, man.
Yeah, so really that's where I'm at with it.
Even as bad as the remaster is, it was still fucking fun to just run around killing some British people.
And so, like, it was a game for me. It was Assassin's Creed. I liked it in Blades. Woo! But really, that's why I got into Assassin's Creed 3. I did like the other ones better, but I'll get into that more later when we talk about that series as a whole. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
So we'll get into our comments with this bundle, and I guess overall just re-looking at the story. But just first, for disclosure purposes, we finished the main story. You, like, 100%ed?
I 100% synced the main story, the naval missions, and the frontier missions, and then I did some side quests.
So I just kind of approached it like I always do with like a moderately open world game, where I just kind of plowed through, maybe doing a side quest here and there, and then we both played the DLC that came and was released a year after the game came out, The Tyranny of King Washington, and then also in that bundle is Assassin's Creed Liberation, the very weird...
It's AC3 for the PS Vita.
Yeah, AC3 for the PlayStation Vita is the best way to say it, but it's like this weird spin-off game where you follow a French female assassin in colonial New Orleans, which is under French control. We both played like an hour of it? An hour of it, and we were both just kind of bored, and we kind of agreed that like it's
some
when
cool
you
concepts.
hear it's some decent concepts, and when you hear handheld Assassin's Creed, what you get is exactly what that like what you're picturing when you hear that is what you get. It's still semi-decent, but like nothing to write home about, because those consoles, I mean, I argue, still aren't really capable of.
No, the Vita was actually really good.
The Vita was good. I owned a Vita for a little bit. I didn't play that on Vita because I don't think I cared.
Because they didn't support it enough. It's like the Wii U, man.
Yeah.
They didn't support that, and it's a shame. But whatever.
So let's kind of get into the main... we'll start with the main story and then go on to Tyranny. The main story and, I guess, main gameplay. First, before we go into story, I guess we can just kind of talk about mechanically the fact that they fixed nothing.
No, they fixed... I looked up a list of the fixes. They... Slight tweaks to some story missions, and that's about it.
Yeah, and
lighting changes. Ooh.
What is it that you said that? Well, because my big thing is, in 2012, we can excuse weird graphical hiccups.
Yeah, because that was the time when PS3 is so realistic, guys.
Some very weird texture assets and claymation style face stuff, even though there was mocapping available at the time, and that ain't mocapped.
Well, no, mocap is different from texturing, though. That's different. Yeah. I don't know. It's still like the remaster somehow looks a little worse.
Yeah.
When you're out in the open world in the frontier, it looks pretty because that's like the open world. I think that's what they focused on. But cutscenes, dude. Who no?
Yeah,
they did something to the eyes, and the eyes are creepy because they're all glazed over, and then you have these Play-Doh faces.
Yeah,
and I'm very frightened. And then there's no lighting system in the cutscenes, so it jumps from no lighting to like this beautiful sunset, which you said is the orange screen.
Yeah,
so
more than once there'd be like a cutscene where it's lit like a normal day. And then all of a sudden, gameplay's just orange, or vice versa.
It flips right to sunset, and the sunset lighting is just yellow.
It's just it looks terrible. It looks terrible, and mechanics wise, it was not very. It was a 2013 Assassin's Creed game.
It made the combat from Revelation. It made it a little easier. It kept the execution mechanic from the other two games, and basically just kept that up. Except now you have like set combos, and you can't kill anyone without using an elimination.
Yeah.
So like you can't like just hit up square. Like they don't have health bars. You have to kill them with an animation, or else they won't die. So it's weird. It's easy combat, but whatever.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. I
mash square, then circle, then square, and then you're good.
So story wise. I guess let's start with not the elephant in the room, but like the kind of the thing that 3 is most criticized for, which is the very, or at least from what I remember, the poor execution of the finale of Desmond Miles in the modern days. For those who are playing Assassin's Creed now and may not remember, there used to be a modern day story.
It used to be a connected, cohesive. Now there is, but it's so fucking stripped back from what it was. Oh,
well, they still have interstitials of kind of going back in the modern day, and you know what the animus is.
The new girl Lydia is just not a good protagonist.
But like the thing, my big issue is just the fact that, or not my big issue. I remember being a kid when I first got the game, watching IGN's "Here's what you missed on or like everything you need to know going into Assassin's Creed 3 for like people who maybe were starting with 3. And I believe that the Desmond missions the Desmond story was a lot more intriguing, but it is so poorly well done in this.
Well, it doesn't help that your hub in that is like this dark cave that you can't see anything.
That cave is awful.
And it doesn't help with the new lighting feature either, but it's so... They just botched it, and I'm so angry because I really liked the modern day story, and they just...
So if you're not familiar with AC, give like maybe a few second summary as to what Desmond was before the end of this.
Yeah, so Desmond basically is a modern day assassin, but who ran away from home at the age of like 16, got a bartending job, then got abducted by Abstergo, which is the modern day Templars, and now he was being tested on with the Animus. He broke out, and now he's part of the Assassins again. They're trying to stop Doomsday. There's a lot more to it, but that's the basic premise of it.
And 3 follows of a plot.
Doomsday is approaching, and they need to
Doomsday is approaching, but I want to mention how it has not aged well, how they wrote in Doomsday.
12.
You remember, to our listeners, do you remember back in 2012 when the Mayan calendar ran out, so everybody thought that meant the Mayans saw the end of the world?
It was our Y2K, basically.
It was our Y2K, and Ubisoft writes that into Assassin's Creed 3.
Yeah.
And I had, like, maybe blocked it out of my mind after playing it twice in 2012, I think. I think I played through the story maybe twice back when I was at that age. And I kind of blocked it out, so I remember starting the game for the first time, and they're just like, the end of the world, and then it shows December 21st, 2012. And it was like, ooh, that's not aged well.
Yeah, I think Brotherhood touched on that a little bit at the end, like, oh, there is a solar flare coming that's going to happen, but that was like 2011, so it's like, oh, next year.
Yeah.
Because that's when the next Assassin's Creed game is going to happen. I don't know if it was influenced by them. I'm assuming it had to be, but...
yeah, so I guess going into Connor's...
Connor sucks. Connor sucks, dude. Oh my god, Connor sucks.
So to give you, like...
I'm sorry.
See, the funniest thing is, my god, the other Assassins, as that series went on, must have just been the worst, because Connor has been probably one of my favorites in the games I've played of Assassin's Creed, which is not much, because it was...
You had Arno and then Jacob and Evie, right?
I had Connor, I had Edward Kenway, who doesn't count, but...
He's a pirate, but...
Then Arno, who I can complain about. Well, I can't really complain about. He's just forgettable.
He's died at Ezio.
And then it was Evie and Jacob, and I never even finished. They were okay.
They were fine. They were just, twins.
Yeah, that was the gimmick, was like, you get to play as both. Mm-hmm. Which we can get into that later of where that series has gone. So Connor...
Hatham is a better protagonist than Connor.
I guess we're going to go into if you've never played Assassin's Creed 3, which, if you're listening to this, why would you care? We'll give a little bit of, like, the basic plot of the game. The first 3 hours or so, is it?
Yeah.
Depending on how much exploring you do when you're Hatham in the...
Yeah.
Follows, actually, the assassin the assassin Connor that we play as his father going to the new world. And, I mean...
It's pretty well done for the first time you play it. Like, I didn't see it coming. I'm like, oh, this is the dude we're playing
So what it is you... at the end of the first 3 hours, everything you've assembled, there's a big dramatic reveal right before you start playing as Connor, which is Hatham, the guy you've been playing as for 3 hours, is actually the Templar.
And I'm like, oh!
When you first play it, that's a cool twist.
He's the Grand Master of the New World, like, you know, like the 13 colonies.
Yeah, he's the Grand Master for the Templars in the 13 colonies. And even then, though, this game only takes place in New England.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you could send your assassins to, like, Georgia and stuff like that,
but you never get to play in Georgia.
Yeah, I got messes with the assassin, but we'll get to that when we get to more general gameplay. But.
So, you play those first 3 hours, and you at one point as Hatham meet a native, and as is the case with English people and the natives at that time, you fuck her. Mm-hmm. Pardon my language, but you
it was
have
consensual this time.
It was consensual, though. They kind of fell in love. And then you have Connor, who at the time is not named Connor. He's Randall Kedu, I think is how you say it.
That's closer than I can get it.
I used to pride myself on being able to actually...
Cool names, I just can't pronounce them.
So he's a half-breed. He's half white, half Native American. And then the Assassin's Creed formula goes into motion of, oh, the Templars killed whatever parent I had left.
Actually, that was George Washington. He burnt down the village, but you don't know that until very much later. Remember when Hatham picks up the note, he's like, oh, so Washington's the one that did the order to burn down your village. Lee didn't.
Oh!
Lee's not the one who did it. It was Washington.
Oh,
but
right.
Connor blames him, so it's essentially his motivation. That's why I don't like Connor.
That twist is so poorly explained. Then,
yeah, no, I didn't recognize until the second time I played it. I'm like, oh, it was Washington that did it.
So,
Connor's whole motivation.
Connor's village is burned, and he has a run-in with Hatham's second in command,
Charles Lee. Who is probably about as boring of a villain as you can get. Yep, and they make him the last villain.
So, he has this run-in where he's just like, you are ilk, and you're that. That's the line, isn't it?
He calls him names, and then Connor swears revenge on him for all eternity. To be fair, he thought he burned down the village.
Yeah.
But, like, still.
And his mother died, and like, that's
there were other people there, he just decided Lee.
Yeah.
For some reason, he has this fixation on Lee.
So we flash forward to when he's about the age he's in his like 20s, I think.
Yeah, he's like a young adult.
Yeah, he's a young adult, and the first civilization, which is part of the modern nation. The lore gets so damn complicated.
I kind of like how they did like the spirit quests that native people to do it. I think that's a cool integration of the first Civ.
Yeah, so it's the first civilization is contacting him in a way he'll recognize.
Yeah, it's a crystal ball that their village has been using for centuries, so that guides them on spirit quests. So it's just a first Civ artifact that leads Connor to
seek this symbol, which is it's the assassin symbol, and he goes and finds who is still kind of a man who is still kind of an interesting. I think Achilles is cool. He's like this old, bitter, like I guess last assassin in a colony standing.
Yeah, he. It's said that he like quote unquote abandoned the Brotherhood because they were being hunted down and killed. In Rogue, they explain this a little more because that's when the assassins were popular in the colonies, and the Templars hunted them down, killed them all. Achilles was spared because he made a deal to just stay out of it and just let it go, but his wife and son were killed, so now he's a bitter old man living in a rundown mansion in the forest.
Yeah, and Connor's just like, train me.
And then he's persistent. Achilles kicks his ass, and he's like, train me. And then he does.
And he's like, sure. And then even to explain just how kind of weak everything is about this game, there's, like, when he finishes the training and they have the robes, they're like, there used to be a ceremony to get these.
You don't get it now.
Neither of us really care about the formal ceremony. Go!
Which, in the other ones you did, but, that's fine. It's fine. It's a really impactful moment in Assassin's Creed 2, but it's fine. And
to kind of, I guess, quick hit through the rest of it, then you have what I think is the formula in any of the Assassin's Creed games. very slowly taking down Templar control. Each sequence ends with assassinating a Templar. And I guess we can kind of hit the very few highlights, I guess, they have there of, like...
Yeah, there's some good stuff to this game. It's bogged down by a lot.
When you go into Boston for the first time and meet... One of the first earliest instances of this I can remember is when you first go into Boston when you're finally, like, set free.
Yeah.
In the game, you meet with Sam Adams to start planning down, like, taking over British control. I think that's the first... Who goes down first? Pitcairn?
Yeah, it's Pitcairn.
Yeah. And... Because he wants to buy Connor's land, or Connor's tribes.
It was Braddock, maybe.
Oh, Braddock was first, yeah. And then because Pitcairn's the general. The first Templar is trying to get the money to buy Connor's tribe's land. And he meets with Sam Adams, who is like... I mean, he's Sam Adams. You know who Sam Adams is if you study American history. But in the context of this, he just likes Connor.
Yeah, he's a leader of the Sons of Liberty. Yeah. And then Connor just kind of joins him.
He's kind of his buddy.
Yeah.
And Connor, of course, is taking... He works... The thing about Connor where you could see what they were trying to do was he thinks in absolutes.
Yes.
Connor does.
It's kind of cute how... When he first enters Boston, he doesn't understand the concept of racism. I really like that about his character.
So what I was getting at was, we're kind of over-explaining Connor and Sam Adams. There's a very interesting scene. It's like 2 minutes long, maybe. But you're walking with Sam Adams to go meet with the Sons of Liberty to plan one of the various... What I was getting at was just that Connor wants to just kill whichever one it is outright. Sam Adams is like, no... Destroy them with peace and do things the civil way. Idiotic.
No, Connor wanted to do it the civil way, but Sam was like, "No, you got to kill him." And Connor
was that? Well, I mean, at this beginning part, towards the end of the sequence, I think he's more like
kill.
And there's a very interesting scene where they're talking, and Sam goes into, I don't want to say stock Revolutionary War quotes of like, we are under the yoke of oppression, but he kind of does.
Yeah,
he kind of just goes into like the stuff you've always heard if you've ever studied the American Revolution and seen these men. Right.
It's believable. Like I can buy it.
You can buy it, but he at one point mentions that like they're as oppressed as slaves in the colonies. And Connor goes like, you say this, yet you yourself own a slave. And there's an interesting back and forth of like, oh, well, it's a good point, Connor, but no.
Like, you gotta, like, after we deal with our freedom and they get theirs, and Connor's is like, well, we should all have freedom, not just one then another.
And it plays on what I think is the writers were trying to do to make Connor interesting. It failed miserably.
And going off of that, in the modern day, you can have, like, optional conversations with people. And Sean, you can have optional conversation with him. And you actually get into a pretty, like, interesting discussion about, like, the politics of the Revolutionary War. And he's like, so Sean, being the British guy, he's like, I'm not defending it. He's like, the British wanted the taxes. He's like, that's like going to like a restaurant and having everyone would pay a slice, and then the Americans get up and leave. And then Desmond retorts with, well, the king also pulled out a gun on us and said, if you don't pay your part of the check. Like, there's an interesting back and forth. He's like, well, two stupids don't make us smart, and it kind of ends there. And there's a couple of good discussions like that that are really like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It brings up a lot of like good points about like the politics of the time. And there's a lot of intrigue like that in the game that never really explored.
Oh, it never goes anywhere. They're like, hey, we want to make it look as if we're trying to make an interesting point. Of course, that really comes into fruition into the fucking DLC, but we'll get there.
The American Revolution in this game is just the set piece. It isn't explored. It's Connor's story that happens to be in the American Revolution. It's not really intertwined like I think it probably should have been. He's just kind of going one place to another. Like,
and you run into
very
some...
forced. It's like you go to Bunker Hill. Why? The Battle of Bunker Hill.
Here's the Battle of Bunker Hill.
Like, why is he there?
So much fucking cooler in the cinematic. I know it was a cinematic, but I rewatched that cinematic and I was like, oh my god, we're gonna like charge in and like kill some people. And it's like you have to sneak around their lines through a very broken system of The British are firing. Find cover. Half the time you can't even fucking find cover in the mission.
And it's like...
And then you have like, oh my god. Then you get to go on the midnight ride with Paul Revere, which fuck that mission.
I just kind of ran through the woods.
Well, do you remember the midnight ride? Fuck the midnight ride mission. I kind of got to go off on this for a second. Like, fuck you, game, for making Paul Revere look like a whiny little bitch. Some of it's just the broken dialogue loops.
Yeah.
I have to admit, because basically that mission... I mean, if you know the story of the Midnight Ride, you know what happens. Paul Revere goes and warns everyone that the British are coming before the first battle of the Revolution. Or 2 battles, Lexington and Concord. But this one, Connor's along. And they make Connor steer the horse.
For whatever reason, because Connor has to be there.
Yes. And in it, you're riding through the frontier. You have to keep asking Paul for directions. Which is just, I believe we're going to the left, Connor.
And then, it's just yelling.
He just yells, and then you get off you occasionally have to get off the horse and fight, and Paul Revere can't fight, which, you
have to protect him.
You have to protect him, and, he's fighting back, but you really have to,
They have to find a random house in a random town twice.
But the minute you get off, the reason that it really annoyed me was the minute you kill the last guard, Paul, something about the way they program the dialogue loop, at least for me, the minute you finish the last guard in the squad off before getting back in the horse, Paul immediately goes into, what are you doing, Connor? Get back on the horse, Connor. Get back on the horse. He gets locked in this dialogue loop that really fucking annoyed me.
Yeah.
I really hate that mission. That one in particular. Well, then, the Boston Tea Party mission sucks, too.
Yeah, it's just kind of
It's just kind of
It's a big moment in history, and it's just Yeah. They also kind of cut out the part where the people dressed up as Native Americans.
Yeah.
They kind of left some things about the American Revolution out.
Yeah.
Which would have been really cool, because kind of would have been why are you dressing up as Native?
Yeah. It's a mess. And I mean, I guess the only other highlights, which there are so few,
the conversation between Haytham and Connor near the end, where he's
I
want order and you want freedom, but freedom is not will cause chaos.
Yeah,
he's and that's this game did a really good job of making the Templars an actual ideological challenge for the assassins. It's not just evil versus good. It's how should society be run? Under order or free will? And you can see both decisions. The only thing I don't like about the Templars is that, the Templar targets is Haytham's little group, but you don't get time to really learn about that group when you're playing as Haytham. So it's really just, guy number 1, 2, and 3, and Charles Lee has a complete different change of character arc in between the two.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why. So.
And let's just kind of wrap. We're flying through this plot, but there's details, but they're not important.
Yeah, that's basically
But the ending, I think, is where he and I were both really kind of pissed, because into the climax, they briefly pair Connor and Haytham together.
This is my favorite section of the game.
Oh yeah, me too, because you get to hear these two people again. Connor being someone who thinks in absolutes. Mm-hmm. Being no, you are evil, you are Templar. Mm-hmm. And then Haytham being well, son,
no.
What if I'm not? Think about that. It's not...
And then Connor actually sees his point and, wants to make peace with the Templars.
Yeah, he wants to be the bridge for peace. And then Haytham does the whole thing where, because Connor looks up to George Washington, he kind of ruins George Washington, which gives the only line where the Connor actor does well, which is they're at the fort. What's the fort? Valley Forge. And Haytham's just I'm going to show you that George Washington's a bad guy, and he finds that letter that Mike mentioned earlier that says that when Connor was a little boy, George Washington actually ordered Connor's village burned down.
And then at that point, he's ordering more soldiers to go
and go. Yes, again. And they're kind of George is trying to say something, and the only good line that ever comes from that game is who did what and when? What's the line? Who did what and when must wait. The number one priority is the village.
It's my village.
And then he goes and does that, which that's been his motive. It's another weak assassin. I guess that was the first time. maybe the first time that there was like a weak motivation from the assassin, because he never really cares about the Order. He cares about keeping his people safe.
Exactly.
And Achilles convinced him that it's the assassins that want that.
Yeah.
And then so you have that, and then you have your big little climax with Haytham that ends with him dying, which typically in those plots, the Grand Master is the last one to go down.
And he should have been, because it was his father, and that would have been some poetry in motion. But no, he has that fucking crush on Lee for some reason.
So you kill Haytham first, and like that ends really well. Like I really think that's probably the best like last words moment, the best.
Like if they flipped the Lee and Charles, whatever, I'd be a lot more okay with the ending. You know what I mean?
Then he goes after Lee, who just is. Ugh.
He, Connor foregoes everything he learns. Because even before, when he's training with Achilles, he's like, I had to learn patience. I had to learn this, that. Over years. This is over the entire revolution. So this is 5-7 years.
Yeah.
He's been learning with Achilles. He's been maturing. He's been building a town. He's been going on this, whole thing. And then he gives everything up to go on this revenge-soaked, quest just to kill Lee. And then when he finally does, he acts like he's buddy-buddy with him.
Yeah.
Like they respected each other in whatever fucking way.
So, to explain that scene, you have this weird... You shoot him at one point in Boston. Like, you chase him from New York to Boston, into the frontier. And through that whole time, by the way, you can't, run or do anything because you're injured, too.
You took a stake to the liver, and then there's no regenerative health all of a sudden.
Yeah. So, and what it is you shoot him in Boston, and then you find out he's gone to a tavern in
the frontier.
In the frontier. And it's like that tropey kind of he's sitting there, you know that one of them's gonna die.
Takes a bottle of alcohol. They
shares a drink.
A swig. They put their head, their foreheads together, like they respect each other, and Connor just stabs him in the heart.
Best way to assassinate, and that's the game. There's the end of the Desmond thing, which is just
he dies.
Desmond dies
for no reason.
It's fucking bad. And that was the main plot.
So something I found out the other week is that they cut out an ending dialogue for Connor, which basically kind of it was like a letter to his mother kind of deal. He's like, Mother, I now understand that while I want peace, it'll he learns the truth that peace is harder to achieve than anything and might never be possible. So you can see through that ending dialogue that he learned something, but guess what? They cut it out of the game.
Of course they did. Of course they cut
So
it.
it's not canon, so Connor doesn't learn anything by the end of the story.
So once he pointed this out to me, because again, my 13-year-old brain was just murder, revenge, awesome. But now, as I've matured and seen much better games with much better stories than this one is, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, he doesn't learn anything. Connor is unpleasant. He's not that cool.
He's a plank of wood. He doesn't have emotion. Except for when he wants to kill Lee.
Except for rage.
He doesn't... the only time I saw sadness from his face is when his mom died, and that was a different voice actor.
So, anything else on the main game before we get to the DLC and then the other stuff?
Yeah. Do you want to go over, potential in this game, or do you want to say that for, afterthoughts?
I think towards... Let's leave that for the closing, just, So,
Tyranny.
So... as was the case with really most story games, about a year after the game originally came out, there was the announcement of a DLC that they called The Tyranny of King Washington, which at the time, I remember this because I was really excited because I was so angry as a 13-year-old that I couldn't play it because I had it on Wii U, and you could only buy the DLC as a DLC through the Wii U shop, and my account was 13, was listed my age as 13, and it was an M-rated game. So Nintendo, instead of saying have your mom say it's okay for you, just said, nope, fuck you, you're not going to play it. And I remember the marketing because I thought this was such a cool idea. It was marketed basically with the simplest of terms of alternate history. This alternate history where after we win the Revolutionary War, George Washington goes crazy and becomes King of America.
Cool concept.
And you, as Connor, have to stop him. And I'm like, oh my god, this sounds fucking awesome. But I never played it with him. Did you play it when it originally?
No, I never played it in the DLCs when it came out.
Okay, so we both experienced the tyranny of King Washington for the first time through Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered because it came with it. From the first fucking minute, I knew we were in trouble when I booted it up. At least for me, I really hated Tyranny of King Washington. He just kind of thought it was.
I thought it was a bit better than the main game. It's just a bit because it was short and it didn't waste my time.
See, short and waste my time. It didn't waste my time. Like, I see what you're saying, but I'm also like, wow, that must mean this really blows because
it's on the same
that's
tier.
not a compliment.
It's like, it's on the same tier for me, you know what I mean? Because I think AC3 dragged on way longer than it probably should have in a lot of cases. Like, there was a lot of useless shit in it.
So it opens with Connor having not been an assassin this whole time. Like, it is an entire alternate timeline.
And he doesn't even know what's going on. He's like, what the...
He has all the memories from the game you just played, but everything has changed.
So, to give context to this, in the main story, there's like a little hint to the DLC, like, oh, we thought George came in possession of an apple of Eden, but it turns out that didn't happen. And so this is basically what happens when he did come into contact with it. So this is all, I'm just going to spoil it. This is all a dream world, basically. Like, George Washington is holding the apple with Connor and, like thing. And this is basically, like, what would happen if George actually gave into the power of the apple. Yeah,
the apple is, which, if you don't know, the Apple of Eden is one of many weird artifacts from the first civilization used to control people's minds.
Yeah, it's very mentally, like, focused artifact.
And he's exactly right. He kind of spoiled it, but, like, that ending plot thing is what really pissed me off.
Yeah,
I'm like, that, you're going with it's all a dream.
It's a vision.
And I guess the artifact is showing them...
Yeah, I kind of like... Because George does learn, like, I don't want this power.
Yeah.
So I that's why I'm kind of okay with it, because he learns something about it.
He kind of learns...
Like, the vision comes out, it's like, sir, I think you should be king. And he's like, no, this country should not have a king. And I kind of like how that kind of shaped him a little bit. It's not great. I'm not saying it's great, but I'm saying it's better than it was all just a dream. You know.
I think it's awful. First off, from a production level... the most bizarre of choices, every single actor except for Connor's actor
is different.
Is recast. George is recast. There's 3 different actors who play Ben Franklin. Did you notice that? That, like, there's 3 different voices, it seems?
I think they reused some of his old clips from the first game.
Yeah, and it's... Basically, he's just a native. Like to kind of give you the synopsis of these 3 episodes. He's a native. He never met Achilles, never became an assassin, but because it's like a vision, he knows all of his assassin training. The mother didn't die, only to die about 20 minutes into the first episode.
By George Washington.
Which is objectively... Well, it's not funny, but it's like... It's kind of funny that it's like...
At least he showed emotion this time when his mom died.
Yeah.
Because that's gotta suck, watching your mom die twice. That's gotta be.
That's like needlessly cruel, but like you almost kind of laugh at how needlessly cruel it is. Like, killed her again. And the whole thing is just Connor trying to take down the Mad King George. And that's it. Like, the problem with it is it doesn't...
It's video gaming.
Examine anything. It doesn't do anything with that idea, except for maybe that closing monologue. And that's where I was just like, this could be so cool. But one, the gameplay's not engaging. I think I messaged you this when I finished it.
It's AC3, but with powers.
It's AC3, and then the only like difference is you get these 3 animal powers.
I liked them. I don't know. I thought
they're cool ideas. For one thing, they mechanically don't work a lot of the time.
I don't know why you had so much trouble with the wolf one, but I never ran into a problem with it.
The wolf, yeah.
I actually don't know why you ran into so many. I ran into none. I can't.
I had a bunch of just weird glitches with the.
I can't. I don't know why. Like I don't. Because the wolf one worked fine for me. I loved the eagle power up.
I
loved it. It was so fun to just like go like rooftop to rooftop like
that.
That
was it. Made traversing that game so much easier.
It just made it fun. Like it was like, oh, this is really cool. I can eagle assassinate people. Like that's fucking awesome. And like it's a good trade off with the health. Again, it's like not perfect, but it's pretty fun.
Yeah, there's an idea there, and I agree with him that there's an idea there. I just don't think it was well executed, and it just felt like a waste of time. And like the plot just borders on incoherent.
Yeah. Like it's a very video gamey plot. Like here's powers, here's a bad guy. Even the boss is like use your powers to beat him.
What did I say to you when I was doing that boss fight? This feels like
a PS2 boss.
This feels like a boss fight from a game in 2005.
Which
find the pattern, attack, repeat. Mm-hmm. Find the pattern, attack, repeat. And like, I guess in some respects, whatever. Like whatever. You tried. Maybe
it's I came into this with no expectations. Like it can't be shittier than Assassin's Creed 3, and it really it was whatever. Like it was more of it.
And I just was like, I just wanted it to be interesting.
So I think the world did a little bit better visual storytelling. In that like the frontier was all like war torn and like people were starving. You had to help out starving people. That's what I kind of liked about it. Like. It could get annoying. But like you can get like weapons from chests if you explore, so there's a reason to explore.
Okay.
You got like weapons, you got another pistol, you got stuff from exploring.
Even if you didn't grab a chest, though, they give you the second pistol by the end.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah, because I didn't explore, and then in the final part in the New York mission, you get two pistols. You have two dual-wielding pistols.
Yeah, so you can get like a bunch of weapons and stuff like that. It's just like a lot of visual storytelling, like. You can see, like, Washington has had an effect on this land.
Yeah.
Which is to be expected. New York has a fucking pyramid in the middle. I don't think Boston didn't change that much, except there's a lot more guards.
It's a lot more. And what's it? He's locked into notoriety level 2.
Yeah, which
is annoying.
It makes sense.
Well, it makes sense. I said to him, it contextually makes sense. But the problem I had was they also spawn in, especially in Boston, a fuck ton of guards.
I think it was to get you to use the powers more. Like the eagle power up, you never really had to deal with the guards on the ground, and then you had the wolf power up. I didn't like the first episode Frontier because I hate the snowy frontier. Yeah. Fuck the snowy frontier. I hate the slow walking. Though it sucks so fucking much.
In the beginning of the main game with Hatham, he's got the fucking snowplow thighs.
Yeah, he does. He makes this big, like, wide mast of... It's like his cape's made of lead, and he just makes, like, a full path. Like, he's a snowplow, dude. He's making new paths. He's carving through 8 feet of thick New England snow.
His cape is so bad.
Oh, Lord. Like, his cape goes through horses, dude.
Yeah, it gets through... There's so many weird... the horses are just...
Oh, my God.
What did I say at the beginning of it? I said, like, the horses are basically just... cars.
Just cars they're bouncy cars.
Like
they bounce 4 feet in the air, come down, and there's a cycle animation. It's like they crossbred rabbits and horses. Whatever abomination this early PS3 horse was. So yeah, that's basically.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else. I, as a kid, really liked the hunting mechanics. I just didn't want to do it this time.
Because you don't really, like, you can use it. I did. I messed around with it with the crafting.
I played with a little bit of just doing the things to get more money, like killing some deer and stuff. But
you mind if I go into some of the side shit that I did?
Go into some of the side shit just to cover it.
Since I did a lot of the 100% completion, I worked on the homestead. The homestead missions are kind of cool. But it's a shame you can see that they couldn't divert a lot of resources to it. So it's a lot of like video game cutscene, like me standing here, you standing here. We're not animating, but we're talking kind of deal. But there's like interesting characters that come up. Like everyone in the tyranny, like everyone you help, like the random civilians. Those are frontier people.
Oh, okay.
They have different voice actors completely. Like the Jamaican guy with the big hat. He's supposed to have a Jamaican accent, but he has a completely American accent.
Yeah. Why did they do that? I'm still, and especially, can I mention something from the first episode just before you go back into that?
The Southern soldier dude.
No, one. We're in rural New England.
In revolutionary, right after the
Revolutionary War. And they have he's listed as American soldier that has a thick Southern accent.
I think he says fellers and y'all.
Yep.
Like specifically, like
and
like
we don't even
draw.
get half. We don't even get half of the South until the Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah, exactly.
And I assure you, France isn't selling that territory to Mad King Washington. So how the fuck did that make any sense?
I don't know. It's funny.
And then also on that same note, in the first episode, the clan mother in the main game only spoke in native tongue. Mm-hmm. They recast her voice, but also on top of, like, she only spoke in, like, I know you said that in the other games, the animus is...
Yeah, it's like how Liberation was. Like, remember how they threw in a couple French words and they translate it? That's how all the other games were. It was like, it's like that. It's English. And the first game is completely English, even though it takes place in Jerusalem.
So it's like, it's assumed that, yes, the animus is translating for you, but in
it's
the
a
main...
difference, though.
In the main story of Assassin's Creed 3... Anytime you meet the clan mother and talk to her...
Or any native people.
Or really any natives, they only speak in native tongue. Mm-hmm. For some ungodly reason.
They just chose full
They
English.
just said, like, fuck historical accuracy. They all speak English now. Sure. And it's especially jarring if... I know it was released originally a year after, but if you go straight in from the game into the DLC... It's really jarring to the point where it was distracting.
It's not consistent for sure. Yeah. It's not consistent. So
back to the side quest. Sorry, I had to mention that.
So every time you do a frontier mission, there's another building that pops up, and like the town gets more busy, and you get more people, and you can do more quests for them, and you can like build more stuff with your stuff, like the second holster. Yeah. You can make more. You get more money, get more convoys. It's an interesting little system that I wish they put a little more time into. They had an Easter egg to the Da Vinci flying machine from Assassin's Creed 2, but they don't let you fucking fly it. It's just the cutscene, which made me a little mad, but it's okay. At the end of it, if you do all of it, you watch Achilles actually die, and you dig his grave, and you put him in. It's a really cute, like, funeral scene.
That's nice.
And then you get his assassin robes, which are really cool, which are just Connor's, but, like, cleaner and, like, dressed down, like, what it actually was. So that was pretty cool. The naval missions, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. No, I agree.
Some of them were, like some of the fort missions were fine. I didn't mind, like, when you actually, like, went into the fort and did stuff, that was fine. I like that. But when I tell you that they didn't test those levels for full sync, they didn't test, it was literally impossible to do one of the ones. I couldn't do it. Like, it just glitched on me every time, and I spent, like, 3 hours trying to do it. So fuck the naval missions. I hate them. I don't want them.
Can we kind of talk a little bit about, just before we get into obviously where the series went down the hill, the weird nature that is the naval missions in this game? Because you can tell that because 4, if you don't know, is pirates. In the past, actually, 4 takes place after 3. Connor's grandfather. And so 3, they're just like, there were ships in the American Revolution. It would make sense to give ships now. So they have the naval mechanics, which are more refined in 4.
They probably did it for, 1, testing for 4, and 2, because they needed the Battle of Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, they needed to do the Battle of the Chesapeake, which is just a weird...
That's the worst naval mission.
Yeah, it is.
You're just going through, like, semi-cutscenes of broken ships, and I thought they were going to come out with, like, remember how, like, there used to be, like, the Revolutionary, like, first, like, iron cast ship? Yeah. I thought they were going to do something with that, and that would have been cool, but whatever.
That would...
Like an iron battleship that just came out of nowhere, and it's really hard to hit if you didn't upgrade your ship, and, like, nope, that didn't happen. Whatever. This game needed another year in the oven, at least.
Yeah. So, I guess, is there more side quests?
One more thing. Is the assassins. Like, you get, like, in the other games you had, like, Ezio had this guild of... He became the mentor in Brotherhood, so you had this guild of assassins you can call upon. And, like, each one, whenever they got up the rank of assassin, you'd have that ceremony for them, and they became a master assassin rank. It's really cool. You built up your like, assassin brotherhood. Same thing in Revelations. And in this one, you get, like...
French angry dude with the butcher knife.
Distinct characters, I will admit. They don't do anything with them. You meet them once, and they never speak again. They never do anything again. Actually, French guy comes back for, like, 1 mission. But you never interact with any of them ever. Even though they get... Because in the other ones, they were just nameless characters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if they die, you just recruit a new one, which is fine, but you can still customize them and everything like that. Yeah. And it's still cool. But if you're going to make actual characters, give them character. Otherwise, just give me the regular recruits that I can just customize. And it was just dumb. I was wasted potential, and that segues us to the end of this.
So I guess to end on discussing 3 before we kind of go into even though 46 minutes in, this is kind of the main point of where Assassin's Creed has gone wrong over the years.
Yeah.
I guess I'll finish it up with, I used the 5-point scale, obviously. He, for this, uses the 10. I gotta say, both the Tyranny of King Washington and the main game in this remastered edition are both 2.5 out of 5s. So I'd say that the Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered Edition is a 2.5 out of 5. I doubt if I finished Liberations that
It would be any different.
it would even, if anything, it maybe would tick it up to a 2.6.
Because Liberations is a good game for a handheld game, I will admit. I can't fault it anywhere for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I really can't. Like, it's good enough for a Vita game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fine. I can't... Like, for a PlayStation 3 game, Assassin's Creed 3 can suck my ass. But for a portable game for Liberations, I can't complain too much about it. I can't.
And then, see, give your scores, I guess.
So I did Assassin's Creed 3 main game, 4 out of 10, and then I'm going to switch it to a 4.5 for Tyranny, because it just did that little bit I liked better, and it didn't, like, drag on for way longer than it pissed me off. So it was a thing.
Yeah.
It was a game, and wasted potential.
So, I guess this is the other main kind of a discussion he and I have been having as we've went through this experience together of reliving Assassin's Creed 3, which is, my God, has Assassin's Creed gone way downhill.
Oh yeah.
Ever since that game.
It was extremely popular, and Ubisoft said money. So they pushed their devs to pump out a game every year. And this is where we started seeing the fatigue of it.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe if I had played the other ones too, I would have been just as fatigued. It took me until... I honestly... To kind of go through it, my thoughts, obviously, we know what I think about 3 because we just talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, I like mechanically.
Great
I
game.
hate it as an Assassin's Creed story because it's not an Assassin's Creed story.
No.
Not in the slightest.
Not in the slightest. Not even modern day. It just you're a random Circa employee.
And then Unity, which he didn't play. I played Unity.
I kind of want to play Unity though.
It's not worth it.
I've heard like mixed things about it, and I'm not sure.
My big thing with Unity was they haul it back into Europe, the series.
Yeah.
And from what I remember, it's so forgettable.
Yeah.
From what I remember of it, I just thought that Arno, the assassin in that one, is just boring.
I've heard the parkour and the combat's good. That's all I've heard.
For the most part, the only thing that I remember like particularly annoying me was this was the first time Ubisoft wanted to test, because obviously in the French Revolution there's millions of people on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
What was the number they were marketing? 5,000 NPCs on the screen at a time.
And each with individual animations and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, and that's there. Traversal's a fucking bitch because of that. And I remember that's when I kind of caught on to the formula of an Assassin's Creed game of, here's man. Man has his parents killed. Man discovers that figure that he admires was in the Brotherhood. Man joins Brotherhood. Man murders the Templars that are affecting things.
This time they threw a love story into it, didn't they?
They do.
And the girl's a Templar or something like that.
It's weird. It's weird.
I think that's the main complaint I heard. Like for the narrative, like the love story just doesn't need to be there. Like it's so.
It was just kind of forgetful, and then what I mentioned at the beginning was at that point, I thought I was done with Assassin's Creed. And then they start marketing Syndicate, which was Industrial Revolution England. And I remember them just being, what was it, a grappling hook?
The grappling hook was kind of fun, I'm not even going to lie.
Oh yeah, the grappling hook was fun, but I swear to God, I just thought, ooh, grappling hook, and I bought the game.
Yeah, they had driving, shitty, horrible, buggy driving. They had races, and I stopped playing after 10 seconds of playing the race.
So, I guess, to me, what is it that you said? That the developers who worked on Assassin's Creed all these years are clearly done with telling these stories.
Well, it's not even the same team anymore. Like I think after the Ezio trilogy, we saw like a shift, and Assassin's Creed 3 I think was the last one that a lot of people from the dev team worked on.
Yeah.
And then 4, and then whatever, everything else after that was like just Ubisoft being Ubisoft. But you could see this, like, they wanted to mix science fiction with historical fiction, something that's really not been done a whole lot. And they made this really interesting narrative with the first one. It was kind of limited by the first game, first game-itis, I get it. But the second one was so revolutionary in everything that it did for the series. And then Brotherhood and Revelations continued that character story, and everyone loved it. And then Ubisoft saw that everyone loved it and started putting more pressure on the developers, putting more time constraints. And you can't pump out perfection every year. You just can't. You got to give it time to stew. And it's sad to see that very decline in passion and quality. If the graphics were fine, but that's not what we play games for. We don't play games for graphics. We play games for gameplay and story. Like, if it looks pretty fine, but if a game plays well and it looks like polygons, I don't care. It's just sad to see what was such a great series.
Assassin's Creed used to be one of the coolest series in game.
I think it still is. It just doesn't have the games to back it up anymore.
Yeah,
I think it's still one of the coolest concepts for a video game ever. Having these two factions throughout history, orchestrating every big event, battle, because these two ideologies, how should the human race live? And it all stemmed from these what was the God, what gods came from. The idea of the first Civ. And that sparked this whole shit. It's cool.
Yeah.
And they somehow made a Doomsday story pretty cool. Because it's like, okay, do we put our side differences as? And then that was in 3. That kind of like that conversation between Desmond and his dad. He's like, well, what if we talk to the Templars and maybe we can figure something out? He's like, we'd be too busy watching our own backs to get anything done. I'm like, he's right. And it's like they touch on these really cool concepts in almost every game, but a lot of them don't go anywhere.
and now the series is just awful.
Now it's just RPGs with the Assassin's Creed name on it. Honestly, it doesn't even have assassins in it. Except for the DLC has the guy with the first King Blade, but whatever. But yeah, it's not...
I think we covered everything.
I think that's it. It's just, I got everything off my chest. I'm sorry to go on that long.
No, you did it better. You made it, you had that connection with this. I jumped in as it was declining, and...
I'm sorry that was your first game, man. I'm glad. Like, even if people still like it out there, I can see why you do. I can see it. Like, but I just, compared to every, good one, I just don't...
And the thing about it is even as third-person action games go, I'm just,
Far Cry 3 came out in the same year, and I played that, and it was eons better than Assassin's Creed 3.
I mean, and since Assassin's Creed has gone downhill, I can think of better third-person games I played. Just in this past year, God of War. I know that was 2 years ago, but Horizon Zero Dawn.
And these are PS4, even PS3 games. Uncharted series. Perfect action-adventure games. They're not open world.
Fucking Tomb Raider is kind of better than...
Yeah, it is.
Assassin's Creed's been. The Arkham games, which were around the same time as this.
It's just...
They had much more tight stories. Insanely good game.
Infamous did a better job of doing science fiction open world, but that's just me.
Ubisoft, as a whole, this is why I'm just so sick of Ubisoft. Even when E3 comes around,
they have so many good IPs. So many fucking awesome IPs.
And they
milk them for nothing. They have so many amazing IPs, but I just wish they handed them off to other developers.
Yeah.
They never will, but I wish they were in the hands of someone more capable.
Yeah, Ubisoft is just... Ugh. All right, I think that about wraps it up for our venting our frustrations on the Assassin's Creed series and the $40 we spent to
hate ourselves.
to do a podcast. So we, as you know, we are officially back from hiatus. I don't have a timeline for exactly what we're doing, but I'll kind of give you what I'm targeting. And I think I'm going to take a look at the Aladdin remake when it comes out. We have a plan for June that we're not going to say what it is here because we kind of want everybody to be a little bit surprised by the concept. But Mike and I have been working our butts off to make this a very cool video. We'll give you more details as we get closer to that. What even else is coming out in June? I'm debating seeing Dark Phoenix, though I don't know much about
X-Men.
X-Men. And I think that's about it. Well, buddy, hiatus is over.
Woo,
We're officially back.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for joining us as always.
Thanks for having
And
me.
we will see you in our next podcast. Thanks, guys.